Good morning again, Rinpoche. And good morning, Katrina. Thank you for translating for us today. Welcome to everyone online. We'll begin with some motivational prayers as usual. The link's in the chat box.
To the teacher endowed, transcendent destroyer, one that's gone, full destroyer, completely and fully awakened one, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one gone to bliss, knower of the world, supreme guide, beings to be tamed. Teacher of gods and humans too, the Buddha endowed, transcendent destroyer, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. When you, supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you paced 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you, who are wise and I bow, who with pure bodies formed supremely fine, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, faith that blazes in the 3 worlds, with the best guide to you I bow.
Lord, you ought to do it. Man, so the minute, don't do it.
I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not incomparable, wise mind to you I bow. Great, compassionate protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms. Unity, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is bow. Having freed themselves, showing them freedom too well established in the trainings. The holy field endowed with good quality, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely. This is the teaching of the Buddha. Star, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble. A dream of lightning and clouds, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all seeing, subdue the full false, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewn Mount Meru, 4 lands, sun and moon, imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you. May all beings enjoy this pure land, venerable holy gurus. In the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Inam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniyatayami. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
Oh yeah, again, Dixon.
Yeah, what let me talk about it? Yeah, talk to you to talk about. Then just a chimbo surely some letter. Change you simply, Jonah, because I call it so. Oh, yeah, Sweet Generation, change you some damage. Change you simply, Jonah, Geshe Yeshe. Call it other Tambe, Yamda Nams. The she nam the say she church. jiten lami chebe chakyar yurusa. Rwa. Janju simye kyo na kechi kese. Koye tsura tambe nyamdanam. Janju simye ke koye tsura nyamdanam. Deshe namje seshi kyo chashi. Jiten lami chebe chakyar yurusa. Oda janju ki simde ranju la keso na songu yara. Keba chako urese. Simje tamje ki tuan tup tungenge. Kyo kuse yunde kundenji kansachi lan yura chaas. Nyambe ne memba simje sigra. Tane jukwa simje nihu gara. Memba simje sido simje tamje ki tuan tup tungenge. Simje tamje ki tuan tupe nipa yosu tsokwe kone. Shende che tungenge kansachi tan yuwa chagin sam. Ya sanje ji koba toba chagin sam. Tela yi memba talya, yi tachi to rawachi batalya. Memba simje sigara. Malam kyabe suri chirwat pe tsama chigin sam. Memba simje se. Tene jukwa simje sido. Te che liya ne. Simje tamje to sanje yi koba toba chagin se. Te che do ta kari che mbasi chanju simbe tomba sungu ara. Chanju simbe tomba kela ne. Nyeche tombe chudim. Kewa chudu ki chudim. Simje tonje ki chudim se. Ta kewa kari ena pe tuwe. Rawa simje tonda kande chine rang te tonda ulo tang tuwe. Rawa simje tonje se kewa chudu. Nyeche tombe se kyan tsama kande chine pa paya. O tende ke tomba kela ne. Ta sanje ji koma tobe chido chimba chudi soba samdela soba. Tezo lo lupki yin se tomba de kela ne. Ene ya ngo su nyamle len jukba telen jukba simje se gora. Tela nga zu nam yu pecha ne sogu yoba. O pena kansa ji chomla chine. Ene chala te nyogu yin sam ta che suna ko. Neba dun drone neba dun nyogu yin sam ta che suna. Memba simje rwa tanda nrugu yo mara lega che mara. Ta ti che la ko komba de cho che modra na drona namdri na dro kare nrugu na. Talishon nrugu na pa komba jem nrugu na dro. Ngo su la len tar suna. Ene tel chawa de lo ngo sun jukba rwa. Jukba simje se gora. O tende simke ba se tira. Samlo kora se gora. Samlo kora se tu chan teba chimbe samlo kora. Simke ba se. O tira. Chanju simke kyo na se. Chanju se de. Lana mebe chanju se gora. Kyon pa chan yunde tamche kundu chiba tala chanju se. Nyende ji chanju, rangye ji chanju, sangye ji chanju se. Chanju sum yung gora. Topcha sum de ching gora. O tira. Chanju simke kyo na se. O te tabi memba simje dan jukwa simje karu chi rangi kyo la kye sa sona se gora. Chanju simje kyo na kye chi kye se. Chanju simje kyo na kye chi kye. Koye tsora tambe nyamtana. Tana nga ranzun rabu chi. Chanju simla lo cha anje ko chanju simde ranju la kye sona se gora. Chanju simje kyo na kye chi kye se. Simde kye be kye chi te rang la se gora. Kye chi te rang la se gora. Chanju simje kyo na kye chi. Koye tsonra tambe nyamda namsa, nga ranzu tabu leda nyomu bewa nga shangwa du kyunu tanda kwa kor tenge, lanyo je shangwa chayenge, kwa la kor tenge, kishi le rawa meba, tende kansa chi ina yansi gora. Te chanju ka sem meba semje da jubba semje karu chi kye sona se gora. Chanju semje kyona, koye tsonra tambe nyamda namsa. Adesso chanju semje gyona ko chora tambe nyamdan. Deshe namye seshi choja shense. Ane sanje jumden de tewar she basido sanje gangale tewar she basigora. Deshe namye seshi choja. Tene gara zo ganga sanje ge sere sore chanju sembase ta kese chanju sembase doa. Keve seshi de pedan kiebu jiden kamji kiebu de chena Kurang ge se chiman Kurang na shi dongege mikyu tele ko ane ka sore kebu ses kebu dhoer wa ti dan shi che ane chanju semje sna ta sanje komban ro sa lamga te ne lep sa ra o ti sun da sanje ke se se ora chanju sembala chanju semje kyo na ke che ge koye chore tambe nyam da nams koye chore tambe nyam ta ko ta da ko ra ko ba re le nyu ji shangwa che di kyo gore ina sem de ke so na te shi nam be se tene meng ke bar che sanje chomden de namje se re se ta sanje gyoye de re se gora teshi namje se shi chocha se meng kebar che ro teshi namje se shi chocha se ane Geshe Thabkhe says, Jiden Lami Jebe Chaja Yose. Jiden Ge Ladan Meda Jebe Sangma Thamje Gebe, Lani Tamu Chade, and Chacha Usu Kurbares, one at the Chacha Ubare, Karesna Kona, Tanya Sundi Mese, Kewa Kandejilana, Sangma Simjang to Elimba, Tanya Lube, Tache Sara, Timado Merwa. Nije Tombe to drink your chudi, you should simjet and you should Timado Merwa. So that is so in a cochacha also cubare the order over. All this on that Tishanam decision, you then Lamir Jabba charger, you say. Then you shall charge over duty. And then Ming and Sanjay says, Ming Cabaret to Gora. All this you love, yeah.
So here, as the great Bodhisattva Shantideva has stated, should bodhicitta come to birth in those who suffer, chained in prisons of samsara, in that instant they are called children of the blissful one, or of the Buddhas, revered by all the world, by gods and humankind. So here, in the very instant that we generate this kind of attitude of bodhicitta, so here, again, when we have this sort of attitude, thinking that, and the attitude of bodhicitta has two levels, we could say. There's an aspirational kind of level of bodhicitta, and that which is engaged. The kind of thought, thinking that may I become a being who has developed all good qualities and who has eliminated all faults, who has developed the kind of ability to be able to most fully benefit all sentient beings. When we have that sort of aspiration, that wish, I will become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings, that kind of intention, that sort of aspiration is wishing bodhicitta or aspirational bodhicitta. But then there is engaging bodhicitta, wherein you take that up via vows. By taking the kind of bodhisattva vows, you are committing to the ethics of avoiding any sort of non-virtuous or harmful action, trying to accumulate all virtuous actions and working for the benefit of all. And so once you have taken up that kind of attitude of bodhicitta in an engaging way, everything that you do, whether it is you are trying to avoid every single small little fault, you are trying to accumulate every single virtuous action, and every action that is of benefit to others, you undertake, you commit to doing the six perfections of generosity and ethical conduct, patience, meditative concentration, and so forth. And so here we can think about the distinction between aspirational bodhicitta and engaged bodhicitta, as the example is often given. When you first say, make a plan to go to the store, you think, oh, I'm going to go buy this thing at the store. You've made your intention, you've set your mind on that. But when you haven't actually started out to get it, we would call that a kind of aspiration. But once you actually take the steps, whether that is walking out of your house or getting in your car, getting in a plane, getting on a horse, whatever it might be that you need to be able to get that thing, then that becomes engaged. You are actually working towards that particular goal. So here, then, once we have this sort of attitude of bodhicitta and we take that on, our dharma becomes the Mahayana dharma, and we are striving then for this state of unsurpassed enlightenment. There are different levels of enlightenment, or changchup, the three levels being that of a hearer, that of a solitary realizer, and that of a fully enlightened Buddha. And so here, if we generate this kind of attitude, whether it is just an aspiration or the engaging level, then so this is really encouraging us that we should train our minds in that. And the instant that we generate such an attitude, as it says here, should bodhicitta come to birth in those who suffer, chained in prisons of samsara, even someone like us who is still cycling within samsara under the control of karma and our afflictions, in the instant that we generate such an attitude, we become like children of the Buddhas. And here it's using the word Sugata, translated as the blissful one, but really referring to the children of the Buddhas. And so we can, the word for bodhisattva is actually son of the victors. And in the same way that, like, if a king were to have a child and they rear that child to be able to take over the kingdom, to follow that same kind of a path, by becoming a child of the of the Buddhas, we are committed to that same path, walking along that same path. Even should we still be chained within samsara, we attain in that instant that we generate such an attitude, this kind of special name as children of the Buddhas, and are worthy of reverence by all the world, by gods and humankind. And so when someone has made this kind of aspiration or is actually engaged in it, saying that throughout all of their lives, they are striving for this purpose of being able to really benefit all sentient beings, striving for that unsurpassed enlightenment. In the instant that that attitude is generated, one attains this kind of a special name, as well as being worthy of reverence by all the world, by gods and humankind.
Oh yeah. Oh, they do Kasura. Tangarazan them do Samlutana, Chi Kasura, Chacha, Sukubata, Gavese, City Geshe Yusemba, Susan Butia, Rua, and a charge of Sukuba, the such tumble naggy, Janjusembaso, Remadonga Raju Tabukaware to the Samsanchiora, or Tindumare Sungura. Such a never Geshe Yusemba Chibulia, Gavese Shebata, Minkebacharwa. Anything I care about Simja Tamja charge of a secure. The Simja Tamja turned to Galia, Lutan Sarva, Kevin and Teobato. The charge of a secure. Nagarjuna Jine Commissioner, Shizo, Tandal Pay, and Lutan collega Chingachini, I would say it all. Or dinner she did. Simja Tamja charge of a secure. Such you tumble and Nangangi. Tesukanya Mares and Naranzo Tamemba. Kwa nyamtakbe kansa chine ngaranzo tita bunjurke de daasi atamdarawa. Satumbula neve chanju semba samde. Ine keve setang chache wewe sukuba samaris. Ngaranzo tame bachi ina sem tita buchi kena. Ine chache wewe sukuba konzo de chikba gatine. Wewe sukuba da keve se eshi pe minke bachi ane tanke bachi tukure eshi. O te sunguyora. Ya tichila.
So normally we might have this thought of like, well, those who are bodhisattvas or who really are those worthy of reverence are really high up kind of beings. We think of Buddhas or those with high realizations like the bodhisattvas that are on the grounds and so forth. But here, when we think about someone who has given up on this life and is committed fully to the purpose of others, we would see them as being worthy of reverence, as that being something worthy of our respect. And so too, we as ordinary sentient beings, beings who are still chained within samsara, should we generate this kind of attitude of bodhicitta, we, even as ordinary beings, attain the name of children of the Buddhas, and we are worthy of reverence. We should recognize that.
Oh yeah, that is something as this assembly shagura. Narazu Tandanashin, Kondo, Naja, Trato, Meshibe Momba. Oh, Tindre Shebichi or Kaba Sanjay, the Kovan Jure or some assembly or Sosolia. Oh, Tindumare, Tia Kokura. Simje Tamjel, Sanjay, Ringores, Ranam Bushinatira. Simje Tamjel, Sanjay, Ringores. Narazu Tanda, Simlia, Kyoto, the Koyan to the Mishibe Moba and Sangi Sangiche, Samba Gamba and Samlu Sanru Sanru Taya, everything as you Musum to Tongadoa. Jiden come delay, Jure Yorwa. Tende pena tendo davicina shebata yore de ko shita samlo saya tungire timato samlo menge tende duwa ya tele tungze che auze tele laga che duwa ya tele haga duwa mi chiso nali ina taga nashi tabdan she nige chane ko tambo yabo mena yaru shine shiro keru roeda sambe chade sanru roya tende de ko jure duwa Oti yore segora, simje rangshin yose de trimanam de luburu ase. Ngarazo sangma sangye ngama sangye sangye tezoke semde da, ngarazo semde serik sa chikbachi yore. Kunzo semge kyonde changi cheje ya chane tar chimbare sonrwa, shirab tar chimbare, sangbu tar chimbare, tabdan shirab segora. Shin langdor genne shebe shin tar chin, sangbu de tar chin, takbe shin chebala sobate, sangbu tar chin. 탑던 시로 니가 봐 장장장이야 고뇌야 폐요라 어때인데 그 조상권에 처치다가서 정말 산재 좀 된 남지 가디나 고성교 세대 초교하라 소소치 년배 neuron럽지 가디 차용을 삼제 대체제 티 년배 neuron지 차고라 티도 산재 년배 neuron 차서는 산재 성교 세 초조래 성교의 제 성교래서라 조상권에 처치다 정말 산재지 성교 til에디 Kaduina Samal Kabio, Sosumune, Yambada, Nuru Chamacha, Sosan Kuni Truchita. Tishingi Mesada, Sanje Jumden Degi Togi, Simgi Netan, Narazo Simgi Netan, Tambu, Yawake Omar, Chibare, Tishingi Mesada. Riyores, Nazo Sambate, Yar, Sambutan, Sheniga, Chane, Yar, Sanje, Shivana, Shinjurju, or Esawara. Sanje Nam Yesheba de Tambuga Ranzo, the Narzo, let Duga of Chase, or the Cochang, Yar on Dora, or tea in the Nazo Tisam Shagura. Arazo Samlenal, Tanganzo the Kawaga, the Kawai Gurkake, Umare Samla, Sosolia, Tunjun Segura, Kasura, or Tene Mera Segura, Tegiora. Sati Sanje Rigivata, Chan and Soso Sem Gitan Kanga, Mishibe Mobata, and Nembecha Kangate, Luburuaimba. Sembi Rangshin US the Triman and Luburas, and Sem de Medashi ora. Sem Koran Kanga Yons, Dawson and Kanga Seltum Geshaguara, Langdor Dina Sama Seltum Gech. Sem Gitan Changsona. Kare Sem de Kokanga Shin in the West Dua. Tin never cherry do the Paruchel go Sem Gitan Sama Tan do the Kanga Shenge Rua. Tabing Bagachata Samna called Messiba. Sambujama Tosi. Or Tende Sheba or Jurjua. Think Jurju about the Arazotanda. Jiden he come to Sheba again. Jumba Candedo, Mi Chiso Nalina ko Samba Sangeta, Shirap Chichunda Candedo, Chan Yachi Reandoa, Timu Subdu to Gudwa. Says that Timade Kondo in a Kondo Chon Drayava, Naja and Naja Chon Dayava, Chado and a Chado Chon Dayava. I think as a Haku, the Tangi or Maranga, that's okay, Kumshicho, Kotanda, your dentist in the Samlatan de Yora, Kondo Sabuchen and Gachi in Dondorichi, Melia, Tongank Surab Chitara, Shanjat. Or in the Dissamlo Shagura. Soso de Yarjetana Taya years and Soso Sem de Medachi years Samsa. Ding as a prisoner Udua, the owner is the door. Similar lava touching Mechara, Ishin no Buddha Wiese. Soso Sem de Soso Yani Kawaki and Kedua. Sem Sahara Saharchin and Sambu Kawaina, Sem Sambu and the Cholam Sambucha Tisha the Arnora. Sem Gamba and the Cholam the Kagachang Yarmandura. But in the Tindage Samlutan has some Geneta de Samlutana, Sem de Ishin Nobuna Shasura. Soso similar Soso Chata Guarisura, Ishin Nonde similar Chata Lo Sodo. Yambaji Janako Soso similar Doaja Yomada. Comes on a similar Jibashanga, Tashina Chishu de Chesate, Sim de Resura. Sim Dojago Michita Bumda say the Ganga Yungudua. Shenda Ganga Satona Dushisha Yungudua. The Sim Gera, Sim Gera. In the Karsura. Dogaji Chena similar Dogaji Mother comes on a similar jigwation, another million jigsura. Millie medical figure, Simgi Karichis and the teacher of Dora. Some days on the meeting do Ludanga, the Semgi Tirisra. Ludanga, the Cheva, the Semgi Shawan the Jugura. So, some days on the Lungan do Dugora. What in the church in the Samlutana similar Dogashi or mother. Comes on a similar jigwation, Jibangone just at the similar jigwara. Oh, yeah, I teach you love to my Dutchess one.
So here, I think it's important that we hold in mind. I mean, we as ordinary beings, we have things like anger and attachment and pride and jealousy and so forth. And we might sort of have this thought of like, well, how can I become a Buddha? Look at these afflictions that I have. We have this sense of ourselves as being sort of stuck within the kind of afflicted state we are currently in. But we should remember that all sentient beings have Buddha nature. They have the capacity to become fully enlightened. We have the ability to remove all of our nescience, all of our not knowing, all of our ignorance, and to develop qualities to a limitless degree. And so we can see, like, consciousness has this kind of capacity, and particularly our human consciousness. I mean, animals have the ability to know things, but they're rather dull. It's not as though they can, like, improve that kind of understanding very much. much. But when we look at humans, we can see, looking in society, the ways in which through effort, people can increase their understanding. They can develop their mind, their knowledge, and so forth. And so looking at the kind of quality of mind, as it is said, the nature of the mind is clear light and the stains are adventitious. As in, we have the ability to develop our understanding, develop our mind, really to go to this highest point in which we remove all of our faults, develop all of our qualities, have the ability to know without exception all of the points of what is to be adopted and what is to be abandoned. This is the nature of mind, and we all have this kind of capacity if we make an effort at it. And so, as it is said as well, the perfect Buddhas pervade everywhere, as in the enlightened activities of the Buddha's speech is all pervasive. There isn't sort of like a place in which that doesn't go to. And here, then it is said that when we think about the nature of the Buddha's mind, lacking any kind of intrinsic or inherent existence, and the nature of our own mind, there is no difference between that kind of fundamental nature. So there's coming from the Uttara Tantra that suchness is not differentiable, as in our mind is the same nature as the Buddha's mind, and we might think like the Buddhas are over there, but really the Buddha began as like even worse than us, right? We shouldn't have this kind of attitude that is self-deprecating, self-disparaging, thinking like, how could I possibly do this? How could I possibly develop and change my mind, as if we are stuck in the way that we are? Because it is possible through working with, through developing our mind, we can remove all unknowing, all nescience. And the mind is such that we can get rid of those faults that are in it. There is the capacity for omniscience, for the capacity to know all of the points of what is to be adopted and what is to be abandoned. If we put good things, positive things in our mind, we can develop in a positive kind of direction. And if we put negative things in our mind, we can see how we will go downhill as well. And this is something that we can establish directly for ourselves, looking at people in society. It's not as though they are fixed. If someone makes an effort, they can become less angry, they could become less hateful, less prideful, and so forth. But we have to first have a recognition that those are adventitious kinds of defilements, stains that we might want to get rid of. There are some people, for example, who might think that their, say, their attachment or their anger is actually somehow beneficial or protecting them, helping them. We think our afflictions are positive. But when we come to recognize the faults of those, we can recognize that they also don't penetrate the nature of the mind. The mind is something really special. Our mind is like a wish-fulfilling jewel. There's nothing more precious than our mind. We have the capacity to improve that limitlessly by putting positive into our mind. There's nothing more powerful than that. But on the other hand, there's also nothing as scary as the mind. It isn't as though the sort of like actions and speech of others come independent of the mind. Rather, they follow after the mind. The incredible destruction, like killing millions of humans and so forth, the incredible hatred that we might act out comes from the mind as well. And so when we think about it, the mind is like a wish-fulfilling jewel. On the positive side, we can develop it infinitely into the positive direction. And if we put bad things in our mind, there's actually nothing worse, more fearful than our own mind. So this is something that we should keep in our mind, is that we have this kind of capacity, that the nature of the mind is clear light and these stains are adventitious. If we make an effort, we can see the kind of improvement in our own mind.
Oh yeah. I didn't do that Sanjay but some to a choose on your tanda. The question major scenes, give up some what chair. Rank is similarly also doing dinner Sanjay Temple and so. Sanjay Jum then you didn't call pen anything the card ten girls and she shared the Garcia with a shepherd, the Susan Yamsul and the Garcia words and some dulgura, some Jombude. Mishibe Mumba to the Churta, Lando Shembache. Oh, then it tapped the number, Kondunga get to the Abureme Doasam, Tazuba New Tangitangiche, Roa, Tizukan Samluta. We need to Samluta, Shirip tickets, oh, Samluta. Oh, take your Reshatea woman to Tirashaka and go to some Pasha Gishakiche, Yaga de Suzulangilichan. Shirip da Tig Samlutan and it's Semba number to the Churchutan. The end is some dear to Yara. Sem de sona ra de cholam de yar do yore. Any shala chawache that Tazukanga de Yotura, Kondunga Jetato Sera. Tinto Rangi Sim de Yonson de Denis Sanji Temple Ese. Titun da Sugura, Sim de na cholam chawata chawapan sambucho de Akia tap the shirap sido. Shirap is samlut along Durida, Tima de Teres Hakocha. Tiwanga Lunga Chobang but to Paran shall never pasha, temper the sutrupche, tap the shirap in Son to Dunia and Rogodoa. Tina ne samluchi kartang gursena. Sobata shirapta chikse to Kanga, Komet to Kanga. Kache Komba Yena ko Yarke Droya de Karcha Ursna Kache Kumdi Cheva in a teacher you could out never church Doyara. Tin Droya Yoga the Samlutangura, Tinganzo Samlutang Mara. Garazo Kare Namju Kare Sambang Embachin Tagaran Shacheva Embachin Tagaran Shangara Rangin some Tagachego some Shasha Mato. Dingang Jurju Chitana Jurjutanya use some sort of Medoa. Or teach Jurjutanya de Karche or say Yana Yando. Contra Rachi Maba Sogun that thing on Zungusum to Tukua. Tawari Seva Comian, what is Subuena? Aniko Chizona on the Otasava comes a issue, something that there is in trout round Rayora. Myself, there is a Contra Sasona, Contra Sayakora, Capjo Chesson, and Contra Namjuna Shitera. Or the Abuman, some copa. Memso a tapshi samlutana yudura. Chizanding azo sangbe chata shirab je chani kari nate yane ando kumji chena kone kondon roya mado chejen do tambu nashi soso duga kari na shirab da mongba da sangbo memba kari chena tel deg mare chera. Ting azo samlu kogo doa. Kanchi ringdu ngama ye sabin lane pewa chen sudwa. Rangi ringdu ngama komba le tene yane ando kumji chena ni shukcher yaken dwara. Timado Cheke Yomara. Samba Sanrutaya, the Shiro Children, Shada Cheke Yomara. Sosu Chanye, the Kumdiches, the Kaze Kombocheva Tesambi, Sejen to Negmare, Karachi, Yagen Dram, Shiomara, Kaze in the Yagen to take this. Or Tindes Samlokona. In the Sanji Kova said the Tobia Yore Samsa. Kun say you then couldn't say Yore Samsa, Sosu Sam de Tadabato. Nembacholo Combomato Sambucholo Kumdichun and the Kenchevre Sambaina, and Sosocic San Jagri, Sekin could say, and then could they say, Condusay, Mabachaya, Yore, Tados, Mabachaya, Yore, oh, Chimetro, Samsara Tandua, or Tisam Lutangura. Then there's some Lutana Sanjay Kova says that Chicava, Tap the Shiro Nika Yagelia, Che Mabachia, Drea Yobachi Yovati, Tennis, so some Koto, Tina, when she Tapshi Chekutu, some Kotora. Oh, yeah, this is like that.
So here, the purpose of the teachings of the Buddha, I mean, the reason that the Buddha came into the world, as we see in the verse that we just recited, that do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only virtuous actions, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. So the Buddha came into the world and taught us. He showed us through the kind of practice that by seeing the faults of the afflictions, that by seeing the sort of actual nature of things, the way that the things are. So we have both the method side in terms of our actions that come out of it and our understanding, the wisdom side of things. We can learn to work on our mind, to actually tame and subdue our mind, to eliminate those things that are faults by seeing the faults of the afflictions and then actually trying to put our minds to something positive based upon our understanding, that wisdom side. We then engage the method. So our actions are, if we want to eliminate all of those non-virtuous actions, we need to have the kind of wisdom that understands the way that things are, as well as then the kind of method that follows out from that. So here, when we think about practicing, whether it's practicing patience or wisdom, however much we engage our mind with that, we develop that further. So often we might have this sense of like, I don't know if I can change. We just sort of allow our afflictions to remain as they are. We allow our mind to remain as it is, thinking that these things are somehow like unchangeable. But we can see that if we say, say, start to be patient in every single situation. We're always trying to bear with whatever comes. We are going to get more and more patient, right? But if we allow ourselves to just remain as we are, thinking like, well, I'm an angry person, and you just get angry and allow that to come up every single time, then that's not going to improve. We're not able to develop our mind. So we need to, again, always combining this method and wisdom, having an understanding of the way that things are, and then actually implementing that in our mind. As it is explained, that our mind is dependent upon the habits that we form, the types of like previous minds that we have cultivated. So this is the only way that we are able to develop the mind, to actually develop it to the point where we can eliminate all faults and develop all good qualities. Now, it can't be given to us by someone else. We can't take some sort of medicine to do this, but rather it is through our own mental development. If we actually have a sense, oh, if I work on my mind, I can get rid of my attachment. If I try to, I can eliminate my anger and so forth, and actually implement that. Again, this is the real heart of the teachings of the Buddha, the reason that the Buddha came and gave teachings.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the Kanga, Karsura, Gora, Tudu, so soon, Namine, to take a Shamburidua. Manzo Simje Tamje, saw the Shandal, saw the Kigdoa. Shandal came to Wake Yomarwa. So soon, Naminam, you there, such is all of the Karit and Rondichi, and Namine, so the Chamba that Sawa to Tinem go to Gurisongudua. Tanyum Dachina did sound me, no machine gate, Chizo, no machine gate in a Kashel, Kabu Kashel, do a chick, or a Satine go to Gudua. What he deco, Condo Dachina, Condo Canada, Sabacon the Payata, the Samlata Shirake, or the Condo Shay Shetan, Soso Miki, Nami Miki, Yagumendo, Samsa Samlutande, and of course Sabacum, Kunguchani, Yarian Red, or Kongusum Sedrudi, Yarian Red. Oh, then I should talk to Chet and dress him chair that she so nice. So I did Kadu in a Kogoda. So Tawandula Tunga Meduvareche, Medubachana, Kibu Maritina, she pajo de re some gora. Kanshitani Meduba the Dashana Becha also Donald. So Lia Karichuna Yabu Sokudue, Karichuna government away. This summertime pajo de Rana she does this summerton Soguda. Did so the Yana and it Karina Gujitangara. So the kitchen Bushibuchi, Menditungi, and Medukanga Konga, Pacho de Satona, Shikarichana, never chasing it on the car, Chingas and the Samtana, and Yoyo Marwa. Turdundura, Tata, Sitos, Dura, some Setosile, Tosile Dura. Atindoko, Kanshidani Mendoba, the Dashan Mechaos. This saw the Gora. Pacho de Tawada Tunga Gets and Tagat Susan when Tawamachune Tungete and Digba some Brahmi, Shemiji Susa, Namin go to say the Kuju Abudua. Narazo Simje Tamje Devada, the Secretary, Kawasimje Tamje, Devada, Dana, Samsa Tungete, some Simje Karibas and Zutu Saskeo Mare. Chanda draw me ever chili take Omara. Oh, the Zusam Shauda. Kashitani Meduba Tadashan Machao, so they do the. Rad Devandola Dunga Meduba Shan, Devandola Dunga Meduba Sumbare, Takshan Yamjako City, Rang the Dunga Saja in Bashindo, Shangi Tunga Saja, Rang the Tuja in Bashan, the Tuja race, it is Samleton Soda. Kaligalene Takshan Yamdura, Randa Chibara, some Titun Yanga Chibara, some Lokoyangura, or Tiduko, Dictation Bude. Oh, yeah, what do you do, Karsura? That on the Chanju Sim said, Tashin Bucciati, Shala Sawa Paya, Shala Chambata Sawa, Chambata Sawa said it all. Chamjin with the Kone Konda Fedeni, Chanju Sim, the Sanja Koban to the Kanga Yungudua. Shatung the Trena, Shala Sawa Mechi, Samsa, Ra, Tawada Dena, some Chabesam da, Ninji Sim, Sawa said, oh, dear, some low Kogoda. Kasha Ninji citizens, Simja Marders, Ninji Cabes and the Samlokoda, Timara. Suina call Latin Yumbange Quago Tungan Dagavina Akati Madrid to the Tena, some Chowra. So let do as in Ninji Sitindeke Marwa or Titi Karsura. City Ninji City, Shendachi, Socially do a registration, Ninji, Tisam Yomara. Sulayne Dunga di Bana Yaudis and Dunga Mago Samsane, Ninshi Simja Tamil Yoshora, Kankalia, Kangi did the Mana some Gora. Kankala Tomdu Tawatabdu the Tona, some Chamba that's our Yoshora. Oh, T. Ducasra. That on that Chamba that's all Namine got to the Kanshitani Medova Dashan Mecha. Tiana Kondu Yapene, Simja Tamjek to Tungera, Toma Mevanera, Keshu with the Norsha, some. Tashan Keshu some Dagvashan Chanju Sim said the Kaya Yosare, some Changina, Sisa de some Kona, Simjatam Sanjakova towards us and some Liskur Tora. Oh, Teliape, Keva Mambokale Jamne. So some get 20 Terwa. Medava Pumbuchi, some de co Yangenda Mambuche, Miche, and Russia, the same language, Wadura. In a course, the Tabaris to Terra. Tame was Terra. Tindeco Keva Mambokale, Kozakale, Jaguna, Yarutaje. Yomombe had took the Pangi Pangi, Yago to Sound Tangi Tattoo. Junko say, and then Kundes, you are against some shows are Yurumbu Sam Dawara. Nakasha said, Deni Rana, Chegas and Simshu Cotton, the Telegram Yabodoa, some cotton, the Tende Samata. I think the members are using Busamutana, Takarichen and Macha Kazangona Magona, Yaya Ketanja, Junko say, you then Kundeji Kansa, ya, Tungeli tend to Tabach, in some of the Samluch Kokuda. Oh, take the tat and that. Tungetan, Tungeta Javada, Simja Tamjaka turn to Tungege, Sanjay Kovanchi Chinet Tovarchasam. Teacher doing Tenature Sanjay Sobechu, and the Dandanga, Gobuludu, somebody around and Jitoma. Chulia Tobata Samba Combe Rimjichen, Nisanja Kovanto Shitu Chigi in Samsa, Gono set and the Samba shoes, ya, I'll tell you.
So, therefore, when we think about this kind of capacity to change and develop our mind, when we are thinking about sort of this attitude of bodhicitta, which is based upon love and compassion, we really need to start with our family, with those who are around us, with those with whom we interact in society. So here we use our intelligence or our wisdom to see the faults of things like anger. By seeing the faults of anger, seeing how it is damaging, and recognizing the benefits of patience, for example, we're able to, on the basis of that wisdom, then develop the kind of method side of that, develop our patience, such that we are able to eliminate our anger, reduce our anger. This is something that we can see directly based upon our own experience. And so here, when we think about the kind of developing love and compassion for other sentient beings, this should really be based upon this understanding, as it is stated in the sutras, that like what we would not want done to ourselves, don't do that to others, right? If we just see ourselves as being the one sort of conscious animate being and look at other sentient beings as being sort of like sticks and stones, as if they were inanimate and unfeeling, we act in a way that is really worse than like lions and tigers and other sort of wild animals. But if we have this recognition that in the exact same way that we don't want to suffer and that we want to be happy, every single sentient being is exactly the same as that. And so therefore, we don't want to cause suffering for another sentient being. If we can come to this level of appreciating the happiness of others and so forth, then we really enact that through our interactions with others. If we're just sort of sitting there saying all sentient beings, but we can't actually even point to a single sentient being, then how are we going to practice, right? And so we should have this sort of attitude that just in the way that we don't want to experience suffering, we'd like our suffering to be eliminated, every single sentient being's suffering is something that is to be eliminated. And just as we want to be happy, every single other sentient being has that desire for happiness. And so bodhicitta, this attitude is based upon developing those mindsets of love, of wanting others to have happiness and compassion, wishing them to be free from suffering. And it's important here that when we think about compassion, we don't think of it as being just for those beings that are like below us somehow, that we have compassion for those that we really see as abjectly suffering or as being lower than us. But really, every single sentient being who is cycling within samsara is deserving of compassion. Whatever sort of state they might be within samsara, they all are subject to the pervasive suffering of conditioned existence. And so, with these kinds of attitudes of love, thinking whoever we encounter, may they have happiness and compassion, may they be free from suffering, this is the way in which we begin to enact that in our lives. And this, again, is infused with the kind of wisdom that recognizes that since beginningless time, I have been holding myself as most important. And really, this kind of self-cherishing attitude is the source of all of my faults. But this isn't something that is fixed or determined, but rather I have the capacity to become a Buddha. We can see with this sort of long-term view that our consciousness, we can take different births, but if we improve our minds, if we develop that consciousness, we have the capacity to become a fully enlightened Buddha. And so, some have longer term kind of a way of thinking, but we should have, taking even just the life that we have right now, recognize that we're going to use that in order to improve our minds, to develop our good qualities, and to eliminate every fault that we possibly can, with this sort of long-term goal that however long it may take, I will by any means necessary become a Buddha, one who is able to really give genuine happiness to others and help them to remove and eliminate their sufferings. And for that purpose, I'm today going to be listening to these teachings by Nagarjuna on the precious Garland. So please set such a motivation for listening to these teachings, again, grounded in understanding the reality of how we go about practicing in our day-to-day lives.
뭐야? 당한 저 대인다 참데 쇼로가 고주고니 들어와.
굽출고칙 마르베.
아 고주고지. 야 어인지 되게 고주고지.
Signi denla jamboda.
고주고지르베.
Ngesampar.
어서. 아. 아 된대래. 야 어야 된대샤. 근데 따져야 노래. 어야 된대. 다 고주고지들이다. 아야. 디간도서나 신이 땜반 잠부 다세. 다 교디셔요라. 시케고 망볼이야. 식 땜바 그뒤에 땜반 마야. 소소 초다 마초다 텐데 초 마인 바셔. 내 영혼에 가리네 뒷땜바시줄라베 되시오라. 개바 망보 땜베식 마와들에. 신이 땜바 잠보다 내 식 잠볼래 메리아 식주부 말러셔. 내주 가리네 고 야가도 너 가가셔 용구라. 이내 고 셰드상 고책 잠보셔셔. 텐데 말이 텐데를 지지 셔파. 니보셔지 바셔야 되시고라. 책 잠보셔야 돼. 식주부 밀 포도 용게 건데 내가 저니까 그저 또 셔고는 가 또도 콜 포보 셔고라. 텐데 멤버제 고직 만들부지 셔네 라가 텐데면 또 들어봐셔. 야보지 셔네 고 만들바 하고는 하고라고 메라네. tingende samsande sotora tigi tiresne digra tete mandira ma chimane tinde cheyo marasari dan digra jabe tonde cheyo ra kaga no tende keba mambo shebal tenesi ora sine temban jambo ta yurin to su cheba yese kyudirwa ene mi wambo ja yang shin se ene che chene sunye de 제도도 거버거버를 텐데 내가 양부제 배cep자 되버서라는 거는 계제도 세븐 잠부 양부시에 통계시오라 미왕부 자양신 자수도 제대시오라 자양보다 얘네 상배에네 양대주 송도주 거버다 상계 송라 차되네 시에나 가가 고통계라고 얘네 송 년보다 지금 약보 다른 몰라 고통계 아무네 전에도 송진이도 송나 도만이도 소소소 깨를 건데 si sung shadu kanga chi kondu wara tinde si ya tire tinde song se changpa yene yang den yuru se kuji tire ya tichila.
So I had thought we'd left off at verse 91 or 191, and Geshe thought it was 192, but we're going back to 191 just to humor me. So here it says, And again, this is describing the causes that lead to these particular signs. So, having spoken truthful and gentle words for a long period of time, you will have a broad tongue, liege, and your speech will be Brahma's sound. So, here, having for a long period of time spoken truthfully in accordance with the way that things actually are, not speaking deceitfully or trying to mislead others, and also in a kind of kind and gentle way. I mean, sometimes we, as ordinary beings, have the desire to correct someone who might be doing something wrong, but maybe we do so in a way that is intending to inflict some kind of harm, like make them feel bad for what they have done, for example. Whereas there's always a way to tell someone that they are not acting correctly or acting properly in a way that is gentle, that is kind, that isn't trying to inflict that sort of harm. So here, this kind of speaking truthful and gentle words for a long period of time leads to, and here he is speaking to the king, so liege, you will have a broad tongue. So having the kind of ability, like this broad tongue, also means that he's able to speak in a very clear and kind of compelling manner, and your speech will be Brahma's sound. So the Buddha's speech has these particular qualities of being very pleasant sounding, being able to travel very far, having the ability to speak to individual beings in their own language, and so forth. And these are the kinds of causes that lead to that.
Oh yeah. 다시 올라가 고주 고니더라. 따도 규미 체바로 템베 칭니 줘봐 예세. 뒤따도로 이름분에. 네 칙 템바 깨져 템바 장마도 지금 란쇼데 센쇼데 지 소소던다 주위에도 텐데션 마셔서 뭐에 내지도 셰고요라. 저 따도 규미 뭐뭐 내지 뭐네 강에 버테다 템바셰셰. 장부 템바 코란 템바를 이시 템바 장부셰 되요라. 따도 규미 체바 교망불이야. 저와 야 템베 칭니 줘봐 예세. 템바 마도 칭을서 텐데 마셔비셰. 담바 생게 따부다스. 송구데 담바도 생게 내시파. 요래 셈으로 반대 투바가와요 투가와 현대지 투가와서 근데 속이 된도로 근데 체메도 와 뭔가 좀 남준에 미 생게 산게다 투졸 생게 설명다도 디카스고르스 생게데 르다 셴리아 이거 체메고 반데 셰거라 디나시 따외산에 장안되시는 못에 받아 투다만 보여라 진짜 산에 산지 좀 된데 투조 쇼트도 저도 생기랍던데 겹치기도 와. 르다 생기대 르다 개보세 제세 르다 샬야 이거 메고 되게 전에는 현다서 봐. 시공기를 지르되어라. 뒤에 그 템베 책만 와서자. 산계게 뒤 송데 집에 봐 맞추고 요새던다로 저기 틀려 생기 치셔야도. 그거에 내주던 좀 시계가 얼마도 되지. 뭐 이게 지시네 temba maimba chadre tinde ke yo marwa ngone tane tane never na she gora tisane ko sengita bose mutik be tawa shendal chiglam geto la chigwa me ba she sure sere tinde tondara ta do jumi chaba ye tembe chingni chaba ye she damba sengita boda pande tuba ka shengi tuba ka shenla jixum chembe ko ba temba sengite chitane re ro 그저 템바셰네 코페 아버지 셰초그라 그래서 셰게네 따지잖아 갈래 가고 제모에 삼자네 좋다게 되게 집에 셰고 지그라 뒤전에 셰거라 야 뒤치라 그래.
So then, going into verse 192 or 92, through always and continually uttering words that are true, you will have a lion's jaw. Glorious, you will be undefeatable. So here, again, for a long time, speaking in a way that is truthful, that isn't for like some sort of self-benefit or trying to harm others. You're never speaking, a Buddha doesn't speak with any kind of ulterior motive. motive. But here, through speaking truthfully over a long period of time, never sort of speaking out of self-interest, this leads to then the result of having a lion's jaw, or sort of like a lion's face, and being undefeatable. And so this is having the kind of form that you can't compete with. And so here, when we think about a lion. A lion is sort of like the king of the jungle, or the king of the other animals, and that they're fearless in the face of whoever else it might be. They're the lion. They're sort of in charge. And so too, when they say call something out or roar, all of the other animals will sort of be afraid, but they don't have any kind of fear. And so too, a Buddha speaking truthfully and speaking in accordance with reality, the way that things are, they are sort of like a lion in the face of Tirthikas or non-Buddhists, and that there's this kind of fearlessness based upon their being grounded in truth and so forth. And so often we see, because of this symbolism of the lion as being sort of like the king or in charge, or not having fear of any others, that there will be on thrones and so forth this lion. We can think about this in our own experience of when we are speaking truthfully, there's no fear there. There's no trepidation. We are speaking in accordance with reality. Whereas someone who is lying, there's always going to be a kind of fear and a sort of like, oh, am I going to be found out? But for someone like the Buddha, who speaks in accordance with reality that they have realized, there's no fear. There's sort of like this lion-like being undefeatable.
Oh yeah. 다 tunju kuchu kosong de ba. Lakbar ku da kurti da shenle ya lakbar ku shep da che ba ta kurti sne shep chi she rokba che da tine. Chida rigbar chen ju ba sa phajo del kaje rokba da she ko timba che ko gu na tine she che ba tene so ra chida rigba chen ju ba te da che sun ju ba cha che ba yimbe. Ani chemne shindu karo da sem de se gora so de se gora. Pe carboshirada ane do yakbo ane nyambe chiksu jure tendibu kashe pa jo chu jo me pepe nyamba sene pa gone nyamba che ane chu tandibu chu tongba me tende sigora nyambe chiksu jure se donde nyamba ko nyamba che pa zo nyamba ta ane paru tongba me tende se nyambe chiksu jure se ya tejilamna.
And then in 193, through behaving with respect and service in the appropriate manner, your teeth will be very white and lustrous. They will also be even. So here, however, it may be necessary to serve others, to show them sort of respect and reverence, or to give them a service. Doing that in whatever way is appropriate leads to the result of having these teeth that are very white and lustrous. So they have a nice kind of color, and they are also even, like evenly spaced. None of them are sort of crooked or kind of twisted in any sort of way, no spaces in between them. And so this is the then result of behaving with respect and service in the appropriate manner.
Oh yeah, right there. And tama meba yes, pajo be enche adopting this ora. And it tama cheta. Pajo to sing kaya timba metimba so at the shayora. Oh, sini yuri komba yes. Oh, tende macho ko namjina ngajo timbe sigma wasa. Dumbe sigma wasa the shiwa. Oh, pande semne shuchu tam nyamba 차 내가 냠바 타자 상어죠 어디 어디도 전에 반대 치네 챔들에 십주서 따들이 니슈제 어들이 니슈제 단지부체 되시거라 냠바 타자 상어데 책 냠보 담마다 니슈제 아니 거 냠보다 타상부서 주 단지부 되시도 주 동바르던데 매파타죠 타자 상어를 유르서 어디 치러내 안 되기도.
And then in 94, having become accustomed to words that are true and not divisive, you will have glorious teeth, 40 in number, set closely together and excellent. So here, having again become accustomed to words that are in accordance with truth and that are not divisive, as in the way that we speak, where we might say something to create a kind of division, to create strife between others. Speaking without that for a long period of time then leads to having these 40 teeth. So a Buddha's teeth then would be 20 on the top and 20 on the bottom, and they're set closely together. So there's no sort of space between them, and there's sort of smoothly no unevenness or any kind of spaces between them.
Oh yeah. 다 착다, 당다, 몸매시세, 착배권에 따와더라, 시당권에 따와다, 라, 아니 몸바 매배권에 따와서지. 참배 심전 따와서 다던다 심전 발단은 남주마주 준준의 소반시라. 미게 심전 따나야 장시 참배 수지 따세. 라. 나라주는 미카시에는 나오고 야부에서 지카시에서는 고야보매 삼식가가 야보다 두고다 바르마도 마부체지 따고라. 영원에서는 심제술 따나 앞에 선배 참배 수지 바다 소수 선배원에 술아 뒤도자도 야고 tin데 마데비체 집에서리 장시 참바로 얘도 홍한도 버셔 대원들로 통해 매도 심제 라다 집어리진 버시제 지소지레 삼사체 야고제 그 참배 심지 따야요다. tin데 따와서 그라 차다 당다 몸매체 몸바매고네 참배 심제 따와예서 가도 이나 심제 샹라 따다한테서 그라 미게 심제 따다 미게 심제 따나야 장시 참배 수지 따세 말아준 다음에 마부세 가걸 견제리지 야나 소수처럼체 야나 멤버체 야나 다시체 인지미지 최고라 오늘은 최시요 뭐 그저께 년대 때 강가 다가려고 그래 소수 가서도 지지세 두서래 티장마도 셔요 말에 티마션에 그저께 저거래네 근데 지요 말에서도 아니 가르쳐래 쟤네 딱셔서 쟤네 시조 심지어 시행은 남주 따당 미게 따당도 약부체네로 잠바다 제외톤에 따와 되게 ene 쟤네 딱셔 시지 쟤텐데로 도배 약부 딱셔 튼딘다 미게 소대 용해를 된데고도 가셔 뭐 도치겠어라 아니 가서 제마 봐야도 쟤게 제마도 뿌도도 만들어지고 발란도 좀 내신시 봐 만들어서 소소요 됐어 야 내가 그래서 한번 볼게요.
So then, from gazing on sentient beings with love, without attachment, aversion, or confusion, your eyes will be sparkling blue with eyelashes like a cow. So here we should look upon others with love. We should look upon them sort of in a way in which we see them as pleasant, whether it is whoever it might be, whether they are our enemy or our friend or someone that we are neutral toward. We should really try to see them as wanting to have happiness and as equal to ourselves in that way. Now, normally the way that we look at others is with kind of suspicion. Some people we see as being like unpleasant, and maybe it's not even something that is actually a fault of theirs, but rather a kind of projection that we are making. We tend to see the faults of others quite clearly, even if we don't see our own, and not have this way of looking at them with a genuine sense of love, of compassion, and so forth. And so here, a Buddha, from looking or gazing upon sentient beings with love, really seeing them as pleasant, seeing them in such a way as you want to want them to have happiness and want them to be free from suffering. This leads then to having eyes that are sort of sparkling blue, that have a special kind of quality to them. And eyelashes like a cow. So the kind of eyelashes are individual, sort of distinct in the way that like the eyelashes of a cow are, not sort of mixed together.
Oh yeah, ten years was. Tunda kasa miki simje tana tashi chambe sujda said na bukasi wasana. Kutewa dan dena samsa simje kadis na o kutiki damba sho samsa tatang di abudwa. Tuguma chuna samsa ristebe ne abudwa tata soso kewasa gora sholia. O ti sigora. Chamba ta zewe kone tatang simje sutonga ina ya. Tendru ina da mi ina da su ina da tewa dan dena sa tunga da trena sa. Tunga chambu ngosi tongsona ta tile ja tunga da mena samsa ro. 대화단 덴바시 그 부숨 서버에 통해서는 제수이라지 어디가 그 대화단 데도 이때다 menjewa 쇼세 맞아 심제 탐제 대화 대화교도 덴바 주시라 동해 동해기도 대화 주시 동해 매매 톱심베 대화도 menjewa 주시 그 부숨 서버에 가려나 때문에 제대로 대서 부숨 서버 내 부숨 서버 류 부숨 서버 론제 부숨 서버 돈에 때고 대화 댕겨라 어디가 상고 야부 대셔서 때다 menjewa 주시 삼내 겨월에 되어라 두기 따기 가도 있네 겨워 사야를 줘라. 내가라서 두기 상만 대바시스타 야가진도 차도 시기시기 현대로는 전심 시기시기 도샤라. 이때 가반도나 따기 냥이 봐 대바사기 도샤로. 근데 멤버십 송도 심지어 봐 컨디션 따나고 대화단 되나 야부도 섬도 제수라서 두부시도는 동해대 되나 섬도 셔나. 로 대다 맨제나 섬도 대화단 되바도나 진짜는 다데 개바 마무 진짜 다네 찬상부 진짜 룩룩이라 내가라서 진짜 삼고라 찬상 두베 교주제 삼 진짜 다나데 배여 삼사 삼고야 야 진짜 소 다데네 쇼로가 구주구도 들와 대다라 도나 하다데 랍산데서 야 대다 도나 교르제베 숨주장이 대다네 다 저도 찬 숨주장이 대다 셔와 기부 생계 첨부에 세남을 버리 캠바줘서 기부 생계 첨부에 가려야 되는 직보차 메고 바로 양딱 번내 좀 받고 소자 어디 최선 주상이디 캠바줘 송고도 야 디보도 럭셔나
So here, if we are to go around looking at others with this feeling of like, oh, may they have happiness, may nothing bad happen to them, maybe they be freed from any kind of suffering. When we see others who have something excellent, who have something good, we can rejoice for them, thinking, may they not be parted from this thing that is giving them happiness, that is giving them joy. And if we actually see other sentient beings suffering, we can think, oh, may they be freed from this suffering. So here, if we like are going along looking at other sentient beings in this way, we have the capacity to, just as we're walking along, to be accumulating a great deal of merit. But instead, most of the time we are walking along in the way that we look at others as creating non-virtue. Like we feel jealous when we see someone who has something nice or who has good things. We feel some sort of competitiveness with others and so forth. We might disregard their suffering or be upset at their happiness. And so rather than that, if we are able to, just in the way that we look at others, that we feel toward them, when we see someone else who has something good, who has something excellent that is giving them happiness, to really feel, may they enjoy that, may they not be parted from that which is giving them happiness, may they have happiness. When we see others, if we think, may they be free from suffering, may they not encounter anything that creates suffering. This is really something that is, I mean, we can be making virtue all the time just by looking at others. And if we really think about the way that we are doing it now, we maybe are not creating so much virtue, maybe even non-virtue. So here, these are the sorts of, as has been described, the causes that lead to these particular signs. And so we should try to ourselves train in them. So here in verse 196, thus you should recognize that these are, in brief, the 32 signs that indicate a great lion-like person. And so here again, using this lion-like reference, as we indicated above, it is because the Buddha teaches in accordance with the way that things are. He is fearless. There's no sort of fear or trepidation.
Oh yeah, 근데 도스. 사실 돼서 야 뒤질러 생각해. 그다 찬송주 장이 보대. 다 대교대 제가 셰사라. 어디야 뭐 캠바저 송고도. 근데 대교려야 그버잖아. 어디 교도소리야. 소속에 근데 교도소 사회다. 근데 삼루탄도 양호하잖아. 요 the Jula Kubershala, Jutube or the Ju Tube Jude Devada, Teletani Debu Sanji, Sansan to Tugu, Samje, Debu Kabala, Malam de, in the Juba shows of the Malam Jamne, or Tension Yabu or Desangura, Ju. Aranzo Milia Patata, the Chicarisoina, Teta take Sanji, Kusu Dube, Sansambu Sumjutani, the picture to the Dube Julan Dugora. O te tube chula duche maomba nga tende duba sho samsa malam chane abu yore sungora kyu tsep chimbuchi malam kasire lap chimbu sato gora sen se de sanje tu kibu chimbur sonje sonza kibu chimbu sen sungda kasa daga ba memba se kibu chimbu chumbari cheba na ani sen se gora peche se de sen tu re chili ya khorda je sumshi je chagira ta de dinal sheg me so doa the Chitaka chance of the Gui, Yundender, but a Sugui Yundender shed the Yora. Zudo da, and it tilly and then get sent in the Yora. Then a charge in a Casa Simon Donum Torta, someone in Jimchi, this Simon to the Mabotara, Sato to Mingba the Sarah, Tindesha Shegra. There's a chant of the Tilia, Kasha Shag the Pechesegra. Peche de Kibu Simbo somebody shebe, send about Changelia. Send the young set over the Suso till you would tell Pechesedo, the Peche and the Shalapa, Kibu Simbo to the Akoyapa, there to the Residua. Send some Sumjustanis. Peche Sambu Kachus Jera. That the Mondo gets out to the Corona Tragapans and Japshora. Oh, gosh. Don't do that, tell them what's in Oh, tell you what's it. Peche Sambu Kachune, Chambe, Kutuledo, Peche Sambu Kachu de Karjan Gursena, so Shala Chamba, Sawadan Shalia, Migatata, the Ludang, Kone Chawacha Chane, Pajo de Le Pemba to Yeshua Chaneko, Kusugi and Dentus Kanga to Gyoda. So Sobo, Chitata, Chitata, Tideki, or Mamuyorno, or Tesulitensa. Peche Sambu Kachune, Chambe Kutu Lesion, so the Chamba, Simje Tawada Tendusan at the Yukas Susungo and Tuba Inati, the Tupsi Kula Dugora, Pejetus. Two robes of Chamba, Chambeco Neshella Tawada, Chambeco Neshella Pedo to a Tezule, Pejan Rubicula Dunit. Nishuni mouse dog by a Cabuchola, Shella Mambush of Shagdo, Nicabula Shag Mason, Tadin Dura. Don't have so good surgery, you could your daddy shake doa. Tina Naja so lunguta, that the wall your mother. Mother teaches any hometer. Yeah, condition to actually. Oh, Taya, what did you share the pictures to Kanga? Shall Chambes of the Tawala Sobo Luigi con a shell at Tadanga Kioma, which said what tell it and Luigi and that to the Sagdoa. Or to the time, soon I'll catch your mount to Cable to shake Mason to ya teach you.
So here then Nagarjuna says to the king, as it came in this verse 196, that you should know well these various causes and make an effort, or you should know well the kinds of signs that and what are their causes. So make an effort to accumulate those causes and make a kind of dedication or make prayers that the virtues that one has accumulated will go toward that particular result. So this is his kind of encouragement to the king to train in these. And then next, we turn to in verse 197. A kind of explanation of why he doesn't give a full listing of the 80 secondary signs. So here it reads, then the 80 secondary signs have love as their concordant cause, but concerned that this treatise will be too long, I will not explain them to you. So here, when we are talking about, and sometimes it's translated as like the marks and the signs, or the signs and the secondary signs, these are signs of a great sentient being. It's a physical manifestation of the kinds of qualities that they have developed over a long period of time. So we don't need to, as it would be too sort of long, but these signs are indications of being a great being, are indications of the kind of virtues that one has accumulated in order to then have these particular marks on the body or signs and secondary signs. So the various kind of secondary signs tend to be things that accompany the main kind of primary signs. Like there are things like having sort of the color of the nails as being like a copper or a red kind of a color and so forth. And I won't list all of them out here, but if one is interested looking at the 8th chapter of the Ornament for Clear Realizations, this has a list then of all of the 32 major signs and the 80 secondary signs. And so it is the case that these 80 secondary signs have love as their concordant cause. It is by developing this kind of way of looking at others with love, thinking may they have happiness and the causes of happiness that then lead to a physical mark on the body. So here it is by way of developing such good qualities that concordant sort of results come about. And so here, fearing that it would be too long to list out all of the 80 secondary signs, he basically says that you can learn them from elsewhere, but one should make an effort at the common cause of these, which is by, again, having love and compassion for other sentient beings, we then act respectfully with our body. And that kind of attitude and actions leads to these signs as physical manifestations on a Buddha's body.
뭐야 다 되지. 단디네만 되시고도 콜로지에 개부터서리아 생다 근데 kuso jebe chatende yorese teta sanjele yobe che gosere sembeto dagmarese keba de shegdo o debi keba sese do ani te gyu keba dagmare pes chata de dagmar te tenje somde shne shegdo o ti ma lo shandira ta de kubju kubje demba 콜로지와 탐자라 데다 여번 데메게 콜로지에 개부터 소리야 ene chen sambu sumju changi tozo yore ese tende chi sambu chi yore ese wan de me ki ese ina sanje ke chen dan dag ma re ese ti kare ese na da ma da mitin cho ki ne ba yo ma mitin cho ki da ma da ke ba yore da da en ze ma je le ke ba yore ese eni chen sebo no se de bu tende ke ba yore ese sanje nam je char me bu sanje ke chen da to da kolo je be ke bu to zo ini chen dozo ko dendu che yo mare se ti shedwa ya o ti silona.
So then next, it turns to discussing how it is that wheel-turning monarchs have similar signs, similitudes of these signs, but how they are not the same as that of a Buddha. So this then is divided into 3 points, talking about the difference in terms of the result, their causes, and giving an example. And so the first of these, the difference in terms of the result, comes in verse 198. Although wheel-turning monarchs have these signs and marks, they have similar signs on their bodies, their purity, beauty, and luster cannot compare with a Buddha's. So although it is the case that wheel-turning monarchs, as a result of their merit, have these kinds of signs that are similar to those of a Buddha, the purity of those, the sort of beauty of them, and the luster cannot compare with a Buddha's.
뭐야 다 거래래 야 데려와 야 다이 베셔 뭐야 되지 다 콜로지에 찬다네 콜로지에 개비 찬데다 소라 콜로지에 개비서 님한테 가서 배전에 요구도 가시래 마한테 개비서 메시지 된데 제목고 고라게 최저로 지야 랩도 남사고 마게월에 개와 내던 거 봤어. 대충 남산 달이야 가 천자들 된데 배주 제목고 제 개토고요라. 근데 고라 그 서부도 시지 야보 왜 고스도 통화 잠시 차에 상부 베베 다사부 야부 요새라 진대신이 고 콜레지에 개보세요 들 여원도 가셔요 것도 다들 시에 먹었지 노래를 제때네 다들 콜레지에 개보세 다들 저거 말했을 때도 콜레지에 찬단에 빼져 상부 간다지 투아볼라 셈다에 양라지래 중시에서 콜레지에 개보세도 내가 거라 산재를 듣는데 제네는 들 대박이네 구수제네 대박이에 대해서 소남 차식에는 거나한테 찬다 같은데 요거 그래서 거라 근데 좀 그래서 뭐 산재 신다던 대로 간다 간에 제네 산재가 찬다서 간가 제네 대해서 남산에 대박이에 대해서 나올잖아 그 제만 마음바 콜레지에 개버쳐도 잘 되게 찬다 같이 요거 그래서 거라 야 되죠.
So here then it says, although wheel-turning monarchs have, the next verse then reads, each of the signs and marks of a wheel-turning monarch are said to come from one cause, clear faith in the king of sages. So here, when it comes to kind of wheel-turning monarchs, and we don't need to get too much into this, they have special sorts of qualities, like in terms of being able to be victorious in battle without sort of even employing weaponry and so forth. But again, we don't need to get too much into it. However, the signs and marks that on their body are said to come from a single cause due to their having clear faith, having faith in the king of sages, having met the Buddha in the past, seeing the kind of marks and signs on a Buddha's body and generating that sort of clear faith is the cause that then leads to their, as a wheel-turning monarch, being adorned by these various signs and marks.
Oh yeah. 개발지와 자탄에서도 직도 사회 계획 장세 산재 법은 약제장 개발 내가 많이 넣어서 콜레지에 개발도 저거 체 두개 된다고 주 개발지와 직리아바 사회 개발도 저장 산재지 법이 부가로 직도 직이 선남대 두고 말해서 거라 개발지와 자탄에 직도 사회 개발 강세 콜레지에 개발 centrup식이 그 개와사고 버티 개발만 못 사고 있네. 대주되게 산재지 법이 부가로 찍어야 개발 개토 말해서 거라. 산재 법은 양식이 개발하는 거 많이 넣어서 야 솔가 가담부터라도 어디.
So then verse 100, or actually 200 here, the first half of it says, but even were such virtue to be uniquely amassed over 1 billion eons, it would not be sufficient to produce even a single pore of a Buddha. So here, the kind of causes that lead to a wheel-turning monarch having these similitudes of signs on their bodies, and really they're not comparable to those of a Buddha, but are said to arise from that kind of clear faith. But even were such virtue to be uniquely amassed over 1 billion eons, even if you develop that kind of faith, it's not sufficient to produce even a single pore, even like a single hair pore of a Buddha's body.
This 다들다 니마 가다치더라. 니마 남게 왜 제바서 다 니마게 지den감 참아 싸워지베 왜 제토고라. 매케 남다 반다와서 신부 매케 건다데 신부 매케 마습세르지 또서 통해르도와 어디 군이 어좀 다세르 지레마도 니마데게 전에 잠불리 강가 세워지고래 그 고랑 소보 차상게 세토 마라 다서 라와 잠지 마도지 디네시 베레스고라 니마 남게 왜 제바 매케 남다 방다와 또진다 왜 임바점다 그래서라 산제 남제 차야네 콜레지와 남단라스 콜레지와라 산제된다 세요레세데 세다 제바치 륜제지 다와 잠지 요벌 세르마도 교다 셀르다 강게차된 다요 말레세 지다고 제반 요베차는 다와 잠 pecha res ora. Oh, jindu ya jishlam.
So then this continues this verse where it says then, the brilliance of the sun has some similarity to a firefly. So when we think about the sun, this is something that is extremely powerful. It has a light that is able to like dispel the darkness of all of the world when the sun rises. But something like a firefly, I mean, a firefly like at night maybe can light up not even fully its own body, but create a little bit of light. And we can say that those two are similar in both having light, right? The light of the sun is as similar in that to the light of a firefly, in that they are both light. But we really wouldn't call those the same thing, right? And so similarly, likewise, the signs of the Buddha are slightly similar to those of a wheel-turning monarch, but really there's no actual comparison, just in the same way that the brilliance of the sun couldn't be sort of rivaled by a firefly. So too, the signs of a fully enlightened Buddha are similar to those of a wheel-turning monarch, but really not, those of the wheel-turning monarch can't compare. There's a similarity on the surface, but not in terms of the causes that are necessary for accumulating those and so forth.
Oh, yeah, this one. Oh, that didn't matter. That Liu San Tambasa, Rambuchi Tawale, Pema, Tawale, Pema, Shusawate, Liu Niba Osa, Nikiavola Tamba, Rambuchi Tawale, Undo, Tangeli Junde, Pemar, Tamba Shazo, Liu Niben Jabata, Liu Niben Jabatoswa. Oh, Undo da, Nele, Pema Tamba Sherito. Niga Dene, Chide, Chide, Niga Sha. 당일에 들들 셔도 또 상계지 전 도도 셔서 상계주인데 내리 타바다 탐제 캠번이랑 내리 쓰게 봐. 되셔. 달리 웃음 받으래. 우리 다들 시에는 오메다 건데 시죠. 다 단단 되셔야 돼. 야 알레 되실라나. 저 주셔.
So then here, not really in the English, but that then finishes the second chapter of the Precious Garland. I don't... The sound is getting a little strange from my side. Hopefully that can be resolved. But so this then says that out of this instruction or advice to a king called Precious Garland, this then is the second chapter, which teaches in a sort of interwoven way higher status and definite goodness, the causes and results of higher status and definite goodness. Now, here, mainly definite goodness at the end, the result is taught through those 32 signs primarily. And so that finishes then the second chapter. Tanta Dixon.
Hello? 고구면도
예, 계란 고기도. I think they turned off my sound to him, so I'm having trouble indicating that I have actually finished that section.
Again, now we're ready to go on. I think you may have turned off Katrina's sound.
고기도 왜? 미도.
야, 고기도, 계란 고기도.
대도 왜? 알레 좋지.
딕son 게임. 소로랑스. I don't know if you all can hear me over at Drepung Losaling, but I'm finished. If you could tell Genla. I think they muted me over there, so I don't know what to do.
Depon Losaling,
거기도 왜?
ready to go on.
거기도.
거기도 왜? 결혼대 고금에도 서. 어야. 다양 도인시래. 당가 저는 데리다 가시래. 전주기 교소도 와서 류순바대로 와. 거기도 와. 결혼 다 고금에도.
Just so you know, Sravasti, he's having trouble hearing me to know when I'm finished. And that's why we're having a little bit, but I hear him just fine. So. Gen 걔랑 싸보 거기. 다 수로난 게. I think maybe to correct that audio trouble, they muted me, but now that's some trouble.
No, his translation is so because they mute. They mute. So it's good. Good? Yeah, it's good. She can hear.
Yeah, I can hear just fine.
That is good, you know.
다 딕송겐라 수로나.
거기도 있어요. 거기도 와.
거기.
거기도. 코라타도 거기요 말. 코라타도 마고는 되게 말. 미친 연계죠 거기다.
건서 거기도. 건성에 거기.
지시를 거기다. 지시. 그러면 돼. 남산지가 남으시.
Depon Losaling, can you hear Sravasti Abbey? Can you please give an indication?
Yeah, see, they've muted their sound because of that interference, I think, that was coming.
Yeah, we're messaging them, but we're getting no response.
I think he's concerned that you can't hear me. And he obviously can't hear me, which creates a little bit of trouble, but as long as Sravasti, you're able to hear, there shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, we can hear, and we're writing them repeatedly, letting them know that we can go ahead.
How to indicate that? I don't know sign language in Tibetan.
Oh yeah, there we go. 그렇지 람나야 보시래. 다단단 가져드네 셰데 최상부 수주장에다 버제 상부 제주도 셰서 네 수구 산제 꾸들이야 수구다 최고시 내용거라 꾸들이야 수구들이야 근데 롱구다 최고시 내용거도 근데 롱주 쪽에 꾸다 대셔거라 투베 롱주 쪽으로 셰세 롱주 쪽에 꾸려야 최상부터 또 차게 어레세 디셰도 자 롱구다 최고시 수구다 수구신이 셔다 산예 꾸들이야 수구들이야네 롱구다 최고신이 셔라 단대한테 택바 친구 쇼는 산재 좀 된데 산재서 담부대 그 롱구고 산재고라 수남지 초만보사 안에 고란데 저와 옆에 최송사게 되자도야 똑바토르치 아니야 자세 파바유 아니 산재 고란 대바 장미수도 초사네 딱배 신금 롱주 쪽배 구슬 왕미시 똑고배 신금세 대주구라 델리아 아니 산재고 산재고라 딱배 신금리아 아니 산재고라게 개바 장미수도 사베 수남다 딜라 테네 Dagwe Shingam the troop, T, Cordozo, Chansin Papa Shatache, Till Sanke, te Wachimbuchana. The Sanjay Chumde, the Jagal Sanke, Tindishete, Zeba Tembesura, T. Zeba Sanjay, Lonjo Tobeku, Ngobats of Sanke, and it Tribeshedo, Zabulika Sakali, Tributugura, Teletugu Sigura, T. Tugun and a charge Tugu said that I charge Tugu. Soy Tugu, Kyawa Tugu, said Tugu, Kasha Shegura, Tina and Sanjay Chumde, charge Tugus, Sanjay, Jiden come the Sanke and Zeba Jani. Chö Songbala Soban Zeba Chuni, Zagate Zola, charge Tugu Sigura. Timainga soy Tugu Sarava, and if there's retarded to delay to you go at Zoli Kyawa Tugu Sarah Sigura, or T. de Carsula. Sanjay Chumden, the Tebachim Shungune said, Sanjay Chumden, the Sanke Sarah Tambune, Sanke San and Nijidan you come delia, Tribatu Sagura, Tati, Longis of Kudi, Tribatu de Sanjay Jabajayata, Kawachayata, Tesusugura, or Tirin Bato Sangan Kesar Sigura. Diana Sanjay Chumden, the Lungu Tribatu. Tangba Namba Chochayanti, Kange Kaling Mata, the Tewachambure Mato. Shanda Sanjay Chumden, the Tribatu, Mimone Maresera, Jaduce Gerich, Tinder Sabgiora, either Mimone, there are Misha the Tributary Gora. Oh, Tideco, Sanjay Sarah again. Jaban Zedeko, Jamulin Deli Kawacha at Tideti, Jaban Zeribato, Tisigora. Oh, Tide. Longu Sugu de la Longuda, Chugu Nisha, and a Chugu de la Ishichuguda, Onigus, Nisigra. Ishichugu de Kembade, Namye de la Ishichugu Sigra. Onigus said the cote, Timapangbe Pangbachiora, Yomombada Shije Tiba Sebe Seba said, Tawada Shawareko, Sebe Simpson, Metawada, Namje de Dora, Yomombada Shije Tiba Yiga Sebe Simpson, Metawara Namje de Dora. Sebas, Bambas, Ticorachana, Ticheti Yomara. Hotelia Moni was a Ranshin Namdaga Chachi Moni, Lubun Namdaga Chachi Moni was Semi Timapang Pangbata, and they had Semi Chunia Sigara. Oh, the teacher and any Longuda to the sense and Busam Jamida Tezucha, Tisha, what is it, Lana?
So here, before we then turn to the third chapter, which is sort of gathering the accumulations of enlightenment, just in reference to these 32 major signs and the 80 secondary signs, these are qualities of the form body. So in general, we can speak about the bodies of the Buddha, and here I'll use the word, the English words, the form body and the truth body of a Buddha, or the Rupakaya and the Dharmakaya. And the Rupakaya, or the form body, is further divided into what we normally refer to as the enjoyment body, or the Sambhogakaya, and the emanation body, or the Nirmanakaya. Now, according to the Mahayana, as we see it in described in Mahayana texts, the Buddha initially achieved enlightenment in the nature of the Sambhogakaya, or that enjoyment body, and did so in a pure realm. The pure realm of Akanishta is the site in which the Buddha first attained this state of enlightenment, and it's really due to having accumulated merit for 3 countless eons that then establishes that pure land, as well as the retinue of all Mahayana practitioners, bodhisattvas, and so forth, when a Buddha attains enlightenment. Now, as for his enlightenment in India and so forth, according to the Mahayana text, they would say that, well, the emanation body of a Buddha is something that came to demonstrate the process of enlightenment. So this emanation body, the Buddha has at that time already achieved Buddhahood, but is showing us, is demonstrating through this emanation body, the 12 deeds and so forth, the process by which we can follow the path of the Buddha. And so here, when it comes to Others might look at the Buddha, again, this is a Mahayana kind of perspective, and say that, well, it's not suitable to say that the Buddha wasn't an actual human being who came to India and actually achieved enlightenment. To say that it was somehow like a sort of an apparition or an emanation is not suitable. But according to the Mahayana, the Buddha was already enlightened, had already attained that in the nature of the form body, the Sambhogakaya, or that enjoyment body, and then emanates this kind of form in order to demonstrate to us, to show the path of like renouncing the household, engaging in austerities and so forth, in order to lead us as well. So here, when it comes to that form body, it is divided into the enjoyment body and the emanation body. And the enjoyment body is that which is marked with those various signs and minor signs. And then we have the Dharmakaya, or the truth body, that is similarly divided into two. We can talk about, and here, sorry that I go back and forth between the Sanskrit and the English, but the wisdom truth body, or the Jnana Dharmakaya, is referring to the knowledge, that omniscience of a Buddha. And then there is the nature a truth body, or the Svabhavikakaya, which is really referring to that elimination of those faults, the kind of elimination of all of those adventitious stains. And so here, this is something that, because we achieve it through effort, we would say that it's something that is like created, but its actual nature is being uncreated. It is something that is permanent, that kind of absence of any sort of adventitious defilements. And when we speak about the nature, truth, body, we can talk about the kind of natural purity of that, its natural state as being freed from any of that kind of intrinsic existence and any of those defilements, and also the kind of purity which comes through the elimination of those adventitious defilements. So when we think about the bodies of a Buddha, this is just sort of an overview to give us an idea of what we're talking about in terms of the marks or the signs and the secondary signs, that is in reference to the form body, and in particular the enjoyment body of a Buddha.
Oh yeah, that's Sukuta Chuku Sera Sukusu Kansaga number 10 Jaco mean Jeju Yuba, Tujen Jay Yuba, Kansaga number 10, Sopo Yuba number 10, Sukusigora, Kusunga Supatene, Tonga, Sukusigora, Telunguta Chugunira. And the Chugus to the Pangdoji and Dedel Sigora to the Chugus to the Pangba Chungura, Yomoda Shijiba Pangba Pangba, and it Sebe Namje, number Tamje can be Shishingura, or Tinidilia, Senator Quotation. Pangbata Togbe and then you would tell a Chuguse, Chujico, Rangi Musum to Jan, and Sanja Koran to Musum to Jam, but to Tuja Musum to Jake or Marwa, or the Sugudi Shell, Tuja Lungus, number 10, or that choose some Beke and then get to choose some Timana Karikari, not so but 2 or 3 or this is what that's Sugutella Lunguta Truguniche. Lungu said, Tagbe Singam Shunget, never Nandanje Sugu said that Namji Condition segmentation of which it is a corner. Never Nandanje Sugu Tatu tell Lonjo Sobe Kusera. Never Nande. Chang Ebas, a Chang Sambu Sumju Sang, the Peja Sambu Chaju, Tamjak Trebat and Dangor, Chang Ebas. Roa. Any doing Ebas, 2 coaches in Madon Tagbe Singam to Sugar. And the core neighbors, a core chancy Papa Shada, Koranyaman and Drawa Yebe Tuja to the Mancha, Yasa, Tumble Lepsan, Pagbe Kansan, Jura, Tezu de Tabishi delicate. So core neighbor Pagbe Kansa Shachi. Maradun Sanjay Jumde de Jagal Petu Shenda, Mambuyora, Sosuki with the Mambunya and Tinde Yomada. Core chancy Papa Shada go neighbors. Sure neighbor, sure they take what Shimbu Bashir Chur Sunguada. Kekba member da tende che songu omara songu sa yomara chanse papa kyanga de do che song sate te song da tekba chi che ba she songora o de ngeba ngade se de ngeba de ko chi se ma tong ba de shu ba de so de ngeba che ngeba ane kare ne ngeba ne omi to buko be singam kona shukpadan dare ra o tene kare tue ngeba che ngeba che o kor ngeba che che ngeba che ti tsama sume o ti ngeba nga den sigra tanda ko chi se ma tong ba de shu chen san bu sum ju chen tube ko dene ngeba nga da menden be su gu sigra che tekba chen bu sung gu re tekba memba sung gu re ka ine sung gu ra 아니 찬삼부 숨지산이 생각하신 데게 여러분 데게 용거라 지금 예방하다 메덴베 소구타 도시기도 디실랍나 tikchen den de
So here, I should also just, I forgot to mention above that in particular, the Buddha who demonstrated enlightenment and coming to the world was not just an emanation body, but a supreme emanation body. And there are different types of emanation bodies, ways in which the Buddha can appear in physical forms to lead others, even as like an animal or various objects and so forth. But here, when we think about in general the division between the form body and the truth body, the form body of a Buddha is that physical aspect, is they're appearing in the form of a person to be able to lead others. So that again includes the enjoyment body and the emanation body. Those two are the form bodies of a Buddha, whereas the Dharmakaya or the truth body is really the qualities of the abandonments and the realizations of a Buddha, the kinds of qualities that have come through eliminating all faults and developing all knowledge. And those qualities are not something that can directly interact with other sentient beings, with disciples. And so therefore the Buddha needs to be able to take on a physical form in order to lead others. And when we speak about the Sambhogakaya or the enjoyment body in particular, this is for those who might not be familiar, that there are 5 sort of certainties in terms of this Sambhogakaya. So the Sambhogakaya or the enjoyment body is referred to the sort of form body of a Buddha that has those 5 certainties, whereas an emanation body does not have those 5 certainties. So for a Sambhogakaya or an enjoyment body, the place, it is certain that this enjoyment body is in a pure realm, is in particularly Akanishta. And this kind of body of a Buddha, this form body, also has a certainty in terms of, and sometimes these are listed differently, but certainty in terms of those signs marking the body. Now, there is one that Gendon mentioned called the certainty of the teacher, and that was substituted for the certainty of having these signs. But regardless, the certainty of the retinue, the third of these 5 certainties, is that it is only bodhisattvas, and particularly high-level bodhisattvas, that are in the retinue of a Sambhogakaya or an enjoyment body. And it is certain that the teachings that they give will be Mahayana teachings. Again, the disciples are all Mahayana, and the kind of dharma that is taught as well for a Sambhogakaya is going to be exclusively Mahayana. And then there is certainty in terms of the time. The period of time is eternity, basically, that they will continue to turn the wheel of dharma eternally. Now, an emanation body is not endowed with those 5 certainties. It's not certain that they will have signs that others can see, like those signs that were described above. It is not certain that the teachings they give will be Mahayana teachings, and so forth. So that's the kind of distinction then between the emanation body that lacks those 5 certainties and an enjoyment body that has those 5.
Oh yeah. 당한 저 숨바 리우 숨바 데리다 장주기 교소도 와서도 장주스도 라나메베 장주 산제가 있어다. 다디 교초도 초도고요라. 교초 수남지 초다 시기 소스니 연구봐. 에는 데부들려고 수구다 된데 줄 야서거라. 단디만 던제 셰들 던제 카시 셰도 대 sabject들 먹고 생각하 주로를 진지라. 다 초세대 간제질이 그래서 수남지 초다 시기 초여라. 초순 줄수세. 디제. 이 내부 관계 초세대 내부 거래 초래. Sunamji Sode Kare Kuchigore, Shi Sode Kare Kuchigore Sigora, Suguda Chugundu Chikchani Shigua, Debu Kangi Soy Ambassador, Debu Chukuda Sugudu Chik Sodala, Sunamji Soda, Shi Soyangora, and it's Sony, Nicole, Sony so like Kilometer or Sony Sayade, Sanjay Suguda Chugudu Jure, Kilubambecha, Sindri says, Tade Tarum Bude Samsa Kiluma Chevese, Sindri Samgure Sigua. Sony Sunamji Sojing Okade, so Sugundupchi, Ishigi Sojing Okade, so Chugundupchis in the Shegua. And then Sony Yala, Sony Le Kandekandi orders. So Walla Pajo, Sunam Dashi, so Sabal, then the Pay, Chuguda Sugunju, or Tico the Shegua, Liu Dick Shed, the article of Nantur.
So then, turning to the beginning of the third chapter, and again, we are looking some at this commentary by Gyaltsabje, just to give some context. And so this then is talking about gathering the accumulations for enlightenment. And here it's referring to unsurpassed enlightenment. How does one then go about training in the two collections that are the cause for unsurpassed enlightenment? So here there are going to be a number of different headings, and we'll read them out, but don't get too worried about following them exactly. So first is how does how do these become collections or accumulations, and what are then the results that come about from those? Really referring to what does this accomplish? What leads to the form body of a Buddha? What leads to the truth body of a Buddha, and so forth. And then there is advice to not be sort of lazy or self-deprecating with regard to the accumulation of the two collections. Like, we shouldn't think, oh, that's too much, it's too far, it's too long, but rather we should pursue this with joyous effort, with diligence. And then there is kind of what are the nature of the two accumulations, what are the branches of those, and then what are the kinds of benefits that arise from accumulating these two collections. Really the benefits being those two bodies that we achieve.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Jursus, Tambutelpa, Tenzendra Shija Shegdua, Gabulia, that the Sunam de Shik so called shaking is in Yemberkuache, and the Sunam just so Tayaba Sushe, Ishiji so Tayaba Sushe, the nearly 10 Jebu and each with the Su Candace do good stick or share the door. Yeah, did you learn?
So then, as for the first topic of how these become the accumulations, this is divided into encouraging the king to listen, talking about how the accumulation of merit is limitless, talking about how the accumulation of wisdom is limitless, and therefore how the result of those two is limitless as well.
Oh yeah, that then the Delia Tamadela Sumda Shisha. Sunam Jitso Tayaba, Ishijitso Tayaba, Tinijin Debu, Tichunguris, some share. Oh, Tina, they want to share, and the Karisha to Sena. So we want to send or take some shagers. Lana maybe Chanjuki, Kutsoni should do best. Lana maybe Chanju should saw the dish and Nina do. Sunam Jitso, they shake Sony should do. This shagger, they said, in my share. Lunga Gile, Tabuda. Dana Sanjay Koban Tomne Saint Tabuchan to Juro Sheshake Sonam Chisam Ki Tedado Jura Mashebe Techevanes or the Tatamalia Shete Lunga Le Tetabudan Dana Ne Sanjay Koba Tomne Saint Tetabudan Demba Jurgres Tal Shesarwa. 다 선남 지점게 대다도 주로 마셰베 티셰 그래서 선남 가져 사네 얘네 소군 주고래 이시 톱 그래티 게시게 만드는 시 그래서 와라 야 되질라나
So then first exhorting the king to listen, and really we have then how the collection of merit is limitless and how the collection of wisdom is limitless, and how then the results of those two are also limitless or infinite. Those are the three main topics, but it begins with the kind of exhortation to listen to the king. And so here it has been explained like the kind of causes in terms of the main causes that lead to those three levels of enlightenment, but here particularly unsurpassed enlightenment. And so here the kinds of the two collections that one gathers to attain that is what is going to be described here. So like if one is endowed with these types of actions, right, like if we do this and that with our body and speech, then one will attain the various kinds of signs of the Buddha, right? That's what was just explained. But it does not explain it in terms of just exactly how much merit is necessary. And so then what is the reason for that? It's going to then describe it in this first verse.
뭐야, 다 솔로가 당부들이다. 저는 소남 삼지 메캬블레스 지들 산게 생중 와서 소남 삼지 메캬바라, 봐. 소남대 시초 삼지 메캬발 때네 산게 소남제 초 삼지 메캬발 때네 생삼부 수구두구라. 이시지 초 삼지 메캬발 사발 때네 ene shukudu dukura o dishegeso sunam samje mechable chidar sanje senjong ase tiji tekba chimbe longchele tekba chimbe do kapso ne songbati dele shegi kebu kera sembar do sara kebu chimbo tishin sense tishin sabashose sense tish nembar ko tishe do ya.
So then turning to the first verse here, 201. Great King, listen to the way in which the signs of a Buddha arise from an inconceivable amount of merit, according to the great scriptures of the universal vehicle. So here, as was described above, the various kinds of signs of a Buddha, he's saying, please, King, listen to the ways in which those signs arise from an inconceivable amount of merit, according to the great scriptures of the universal vehicle or the great vehicle, particularly like the Vinaya and so forth, that describes these.
뭐야, 다니바티 선남 타입에 취디셔도 다들 가서 심하게 뒤지고 제단 된바 담보랑아 야 다니발라 니셔 뭐다 체매자 뒤제고로 제단 된바 담보서 지단 체 장가시오 마트 뒤제고로 수치 domne 체르체 셰긴 송구라 다들 전쟁을 중앙에 권에 송구도 다 담보들 가르도세나 랑게소주 수남 알레 오디르 란상제다 년도다 란상제든데요라 오 대저거 수남 송거라 랑게소주 수남 주르주르에 최제세 랑게라 소바 자좀바 토베게 수남데 에네 가제 사고나 텐데 차르추 최게네 상제게 법이 부가되는 두고요래 세거라 랑게 속에 손남 순주를 소지 소지 투배 원비 법이 부가 지금 두바다 뒤치셔도 아니 이거래 법이 부가 탐제 두배 손남 경주르게서다 법이 부가 탐제 두배 손남데 자탐바가 저시게 아니 가려 그래서나 아니 배제직도 그래서라 배제직도 그래서 되도록 배제 탐제 개별 손님 경주르게 세주 배제 탐제 개별 손님 가져서고 나티 자탐바가 저시게 아니 세주도 그래서라 세사 무슨 나네 직도 그래서 아니 세 탐제 개별 손님 동주르게 Send Sama Send some say Sama to Jesonam. Don't so Jurasira. Piso. Peche Tamje Kebe Sonam can Jurge Sanji do Shara. That San Tamje Kebe Sonam Don Jurge Jubuchi to Gudesa, Jubuti to Sanshan that Sama. Dube Sonam Don Jurgen Jubuchi to Gudesa. And then Jubuchi Kebe Sonam Donda can Jurge Sugdo de Gudesa. Or Tibatu Chishana. Tele Sona Mangasa, Tele Sona Mangasa, or Tishek do. No, Tishlana, indeed. Transfer. Thing maybe. Did it.
Yeah.
Is that did it? Did it.
So here then, turning again, there are various topics, many different topics that are that divide into. But in terms of the way in which this accumulation of merit is infinite, is like incalculable, there's the actual explanation, and then teaching how it is that for the purpose of the minds of disciples, we say that there is some kind of a measure or a limit, even though this merit is really immeasurable. And so here, as will come in the next, we really know we're on our way out. In the next set of verses, so we have solitary realizers, right? Hearers and solitary realizers. And solitary realizers, the amount of merit necessary to attain that state, if one were to multiply that tenfold, that would be the amount of merit necessary for a single pore of a Buddha's body. And when we think then about the merit that would be necessary to accomplish all of the pores on a Buddha's body, and multiply that by 100, then that is the merit necessary to accomplish a single one of those kinds of secondary signs. And then the kind of merit that is necessary to accomplish all of the secondary signs, if one were to multiply that 100-fold, that's the amount of merit that is necessary to accomplish a single of the major signs. And if one is to take the amount of merit necessary to accomplish, and it says all of the major signs, but that's a little bit confusing, all of the major signs, and multiply that by 1,000, then that would be enough to accomplish this special hair, right? The swirl of hair between the brows, that's supu. And then the amount of merit that is necessary to accomplish that, if one were to take that and multiply it 100,000 times, then that would be the amount of merit that is necessary for the Ushnishta, or the crown protrusion. And so here we will get into those in the following verses, but this is how the subjects are divided there.
Oh, yeah, that is one.
So we will,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
so just to be very clear about where we are leaving off, we finished the first verse of this third chapter, and we'll start with the second next week.
Thank you very much, Ginla, Tuduche, and especially thank you for the beautiful motivation today, very inspiring and practical to put into place. Thank you, Katrina, for your translations. We'll be here again next week, 8 o'clock Pacific time. We'll finish with some dedications.
May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Losam's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. In the snowy mountain pure land, you're the source of good and happiness. Powerful Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezig, may you stay until samsara ends.
Yeah, tuchen angela. Dunjo jema jeyo.